Sometimes, on rainy days like these, I just stare outside the window, wondering where they may be right now. It was a day much like this one. I was out on a mission. Someone had reported strange sightings of sorts, most likely demons. Not having obtained too much information, I was sent out to make sure there would be no casualties. I was focused, knowing very well what I was expected to do. My breaths were heavy in the damp air. I was still exhausted from the last mission, but there was no hesitation in my heart when I was told to slay a demon. It was the duty I had bestowed upon myself, and I must bear the weight of it all now. By the time I'd gotten to the village, the sun had set, and few rays of the milky moonlight reflected on the surface of the many puddles that were all around me. It was quite a spectacle, and I told myself I'd return here later and just lay on the grass for a bit when this was over. I heard nothing when the first buildings came into my field of view. Everything was dark and seemingly devoid of life. Was I already too late? I quickened my pace as I carefully strolled through the alleys, walking by every house. It didn't seem like chaos had befallen this area. The people here were probably just asleep. It was nighttime after all. I tried to get some higher ground to make sure I could pick up the scent of the potential demon, but I soon figured out that I couldn't pick up anything. Not the slightest trace of their foul scent. Perhaps it was all a mistake. What if they had just seen some wild animals, or merely panicked with all the demon sightings as of recently? What a drag. After I'd come all the way here. But just to make sure, I was going to check the entire village before I left. The most efficient way was jumping from one rooftop to the other. My footsteps were light as a feather to not wake up anyone, and especially to not startle the malicious entity. Sure enough, I found something rather suspicious. There was one house that seemed to have their lights still flickering. The main entrance was wide open, and the light was flushing the streets to a warm orange tone. Very inviting to most, but to me, it was like the demon was luring me into its lair. Yet I didn't smell anything, so I decided to keep the blade in its sheath for now. I pressed my back against the outer wall of the building and made sure to get my breathing under control before I stepped into the light and slowly made my way into the building. Despite the lights being on, there didn't seem to be anyone in there. There were no traces of blood. Everything seemed to be perfectly fine. The question was where the owners of the house had gone. Perhaps they had gone to sleep at the neighbor's house after seeing something scary and feeling unsafe. This was the only explanation I could figure out for myself. So I decided to investigate the house, despite not having anyone's permission. Perhaps I thought I could pick up a trace of any sort, but nothing. So I was about to finally give up and leave. I could hear wailing from inside. Someone, no, something, was crying. I could tell that it wasn't a human. Now I'd finally drawn my blade as I stepped in front of a wardrobe I'd walked past before. Still no scent, but the crying was definitely coming from inside. So with one quick maneuver, I opened it and jumped back. To my surprise, the demon looked a lot like a human. They seemed rather young as well. Had probably been turned into demons only some days ago, even hours. As a demon slayer, it was my duty to slay these creatures. But I was a human after all, and seeing how they didn't seem to be aggressive, thought I could perhaps try and talk to them before ending their sorrowful existence. Hey, I know you're a demon, but I'm not scared of you. I just want to talk for the time being. Would you mind turning around? There was no response, but after some hesitation, the crime became more quiet. They slowly turned to face me. One look in their eyes had confirmed my suspicion. They were indeed a demon. They were barefooted and wrapping their arms around their legs on this cool evening. Despite being a demon, I don't think I'd ever seen one looking so human to this day. Are you alright? No reaction whatsoever. They seemed to be somewhere with their head as if they were trying to ignore me. Maybe they just wanted to get this over with. But there was something that was keeping me from hurting them. Only once had I made a similar encounter where a demon wouldn't attack me, no matter how weak they were compared to me. I see. Sometimes it's better to just remain silent. Trust me. I understand how you feel. That's when they had finally looked up at me. I could see something in their eyes. It was pain. Anguish. They were suffering and trying their best to hold back their tears. The pain was so strong I could sense it on my own body as I felt shivers crawling down my spine. This demon was trying to lure me in, but not to feast on me, but because they wanted me to slay them and end their despair. I wasn't sure how to react at this point, so I did what I'd been taught by a friend once. I tried to make them feel I was there for them when they felt alone. It's okay. You're alright. I'm sorry for what I said just now. I realize now that I could never understand what you're going through. But despite us being so different, with you being a demon and me being a human, I can tell you one thing we do have in common. Neither one of us wants to hurt the other. As I wrapped my hands around their small body, I could sense hesitation by them, but I was surprised to feel their hands wrapped around me only seconds later. They were so cold against my own body. I was wondering how it felt for them to be hugged after spending all this time alone, suffering. I could feel their tears seeping through my kimono, but this time I knew they weren't only tears of sadness, but also tears of joy. They didn't choose to become a demon and to be fated to want to hurt humans, but for the rest of their lives they wouldn't be seen as anything but monsters by anyone they'd encounter. I see you. I see you for who you are. You don't have to be scared around me, I promise. This was the sort of connection Tanjiro was talking about when it came to his sister. He didn't see her as a demon, because deep within, just like you, she wasn't. Isn't that true? Would you like to talk for a bit longer? There's a place I wanted to go to tonight. You can trust me. I won't hurt you. And I'm certain you won't hurt me either. They seemed hesitant at first, hearing my sudden offer, but soon their doubt seemed to fade into the thin air and was replaced by a warm smile. As we walked hand in hand to a lake I'd seen before, could feel warmth seeping through their body, as if they were a human. I wasn't sure if they could even speak, but their actions spoke 1,000 words to me. We just sat there, gazing across the water surface, enjoying this moment we were spending together. I had many questions, and I was sure they did too. And at this time, they all seemed so unimportant. We stayed like that for the rest of the evening, until it was only minutes before sunrise. I stood up first, offering them a helping hand, but they refused to let me help them up. They were still smiling from before, and finally, after all the silence, they spoke their first and last words to me. I want to feel the sun rays one last time before I fade away. Those were their last words, and I had no right to tell them what to do, even if deep in my soul I wanted to tell them to run. I knew they wouldn't listen, and it wouldn't be right of me to say such a thing. So instead I made sure they'd know I was there for them, and held onto their hand as they slowly faded away, leaving this world with a smile, and myself with tears running down my cheeks. I wasn't sure if these were tears of joy or resentment, but on days like these, I'd always look outside the window and hope they were in a better place right now.